On this episode of Locked On Angels, who will the Halos potentially trade this offseason, and which players are free agents, and will any of those players return to the Angels, and which free agent starting pitchers would the Angels likely target? Lot to get to, lot to talk about. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we've been fans of the Angels for years and years and years, so you can't tell us nothing about loyalty or not sticking with your team. We're going to stick by this team, whether we're doing Locked On Angels or not. We've been fans of this team for years, and we're so glad that you're here with us. We're talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday up until late December. We'll drop down to about 3 episodes at that point, but until then, you got us for 5 days a week. On today's show, we got some great discussion from Rhett Bollinger. It feels like Rhett Bollinger week, Mike. Yeah. I think, like I said, we got to have him on the show soon. But he's brought up a lot of great discussion in his MLB.com articles. He also has a great newsletter. If you're not subscribed to that, you should go and subscribe. But who would the Halos potentially trade for this offseason? Which players are free agents? And will any of those players return to the Angels? But first, which free agent starting pitchers would the Halos likely target? Let's get into it.
Johnny, Spot Track released their free agent starting pitcher market values. Say that 5 times fast. And here's the numbers that they have thrown out, years and salary. So Corbin Burnes, they're estimating he's going to get a 6-year deal at around $180 million.
So, $30 million. Okay. Got it.
Right. Yeah. Lots of money. Blake Snell, 5 years, $131. Max Fried, 6 years, $136. Jack Flaherty, 3 years, $60 million. Wow. And Shane Bieber, 6 years, $147 million. That seems high. Does that feel high?
Well, considering he's coming back from, is it Tommy John surgery for Shane Bieber? Like, he's not going to be ready until at least June of next year, but also $147 million for 6 years of Shane Bieber. That feels like a risk. Yeah, like, right? Can we do a 1 year like Noah Syndergaard thing like the Angels did and just see how it works out?
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. 1 year, $30 million. No kidding. Mike, you also had Nate Eovaldi, 2 years, $49.7 million. And then Yusei Kikuchi, as we know, went from the Blue Jays to the Astros at the trade deadline, 1 year, $14.9 million. Again, Spot Track does all kinds of calculations and comps to see where a pitcher's salary might land. And so again, those are their projected market values. So give or take a little bit, the margin of error, if you will. It is, a week until the election. So the margin of error could be there as well. So the question is, Mike, who are the Halos going to pursue out of that free agent market?
Yeah, according to Rhett Bollinger at MLB.com, he wrote that the Angels are more likely than not to, or did I say that right? Are likely to not target Corbin Burnes, Max Fried, Blake Snell, or Jack Flaherty. The reason is because they have 2 expensive contracts in Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon, and Artie's likely, John's already shaking his head, Artie is likely not to add a 3rd expensive contract. So it seems like they're going to target some of the lesser pitchers, maybe not the most expensive pitchers, although Shane Bieber is on that list of the lesser, not expensive pitchers, although his numbers were out of this world. But Yusei is on there, Nate Eovaldi's on there, Luis Severino's on there, and then John's best friend, Sean Manaea, is on there, sang karaoke with him a couple years ago.
Right.
So, John, Is that the right move? And who is the right move on that second list of pitchers?
Yeah, you know what? I think that somebody like a Luis Severino or even Sean Manaea, not because I'm biased. Okay, I am very biased actually,
bit.
but the fact is that he did a whole overhaul essentially of his pitching this season with the Mets. They lowered his arm slot. Oh, here we go. We got the photo right there. Me and Sean before he cut his hair, and I was
Wow,
like,
you just happened to pull that up. You just happened to have that ready to go. That's
quick
great.
on the draw, baby. Let's go. But singing "I Want It That Way" with Sean Manaea. That's
love it.
I wrote it in my diary that night, dear diary. But I'm not biased here. But the fact is that he had a phenomenal season and carried the Mets to the postseason because they changed his arm angle. I would even say the same thing with Luis Severino, not the Severino he used to be, but man, if the Angels could get one of those two guys, I think you have on its face a very good rotation of Kohanowitz, Anderson. You maybe are getting Chase Silseth back. You've got Sean Manaea in there as well. Who am I forgetting? Am I forgetting it? But maybe Detmers gets a chance. Maybe they have Klassen chance. We'll see something like that. But yeah, I think of those names. I could even see Kikuchi. I think Kikuchi's risky because he has not had that much success in his career. Definitely did it right this past season, but I also feel like that might be the career year kind of signing. But I feel like those three are the kinds you could get away with like a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal, something like that.
Yeah, I think looking at this list, the second list, I think a Severino and a Manaea would probably be the pitchers that the Angels target. And there's a part of me that goes, man, it seems like that's what the Royals did last year. They got those guys that aren't the hot free agents, but are quality free agents. And those two guys in this starting rotation, I think would be a game changer for this rotation because it gives them two quality arms. I do wonder about like an Eovaldi and a Kikuchi because of the cost. Eovaldi, like they're projecting that he's going to be around $30 million a year, even though it's a 2-year deal. And they have Rendon for 2 more years. So I think at this point we can't anticipate the Angels giving a huge contract until probably Rendon's contract is completely off the books, which I don't think is logical. I think that you can do that. I think the Angels have proven to be able to do that. You have a lot of room right now when you get close to the luxury tax. You have a lot of room to be able to make some moves and sign some players. But if the Angels really want to capitalize on a lot of room, then I think it would be wise to maybe go and get 3 quality players, 2 pitchers, and a hitter. I'm worried about Bieber. I think that he is somebody that maybe he can do well and he's healed up, but it seems like even when before he was hurt, and maybe it had to do with the injury was coming, but his stuff was not the same. And there's a big question about his health. And if the Angels sign him and he's not able to perform, they're going to get eaten alive by the fans and by the media, right?
Yeah, well, and you have to consider here's what I think. I think you have to consider Barry Enright as a pitching coach when it comes to any of these guys. Can he keep Sean Manaea doing what he was doing with the Mets?
Yeah.
Tyler Anderson got back to what he was doing well with the Dodgers after 2023 because they had a pitching coach who actually did something, right? Not a Matt Wise type. And so that's the question here too. But yeah, when it comes to Shane Bieber, it's how confident are you in your organization to get somebody right or help them get back to who they were? And let's be real, it's going to take some time, not just for the fact that he probably won't be ready to pitch until, the second part of the first half of the season, if that makes sense. The second part is he's going to need time to get right. And so perhaps, Mike, you can get him on a decent contract with some years if you're willing to go, hey, dude, we know 2024 is going to be anybody's game. And we know 2025 is going to be anybody's game. We know that you could go in any direction. We know that you might have some problems here or there, but we want to lock you in and make sure you're secure for the next 3 to 5 years, whatever that might look like. What did Spot Track say? 6 years would be the contract. Yeah. Maybe they're thinking along the same lines of, hey, you want to get this guy, you're going to take the risk, but you're going to know that 2025 might not be his most productive year. He's going to need more time than that. So we'll see if that's an option they go down.
John, you know what I need? Here's what I need. I need a story like Sean Manaea, like Brandon Marsh. I need a story like that, right? I need a story like that, but I need it to be a story that the Angels have figured it out. That's what I need. And I know that Barry Enright has only been there a year, and this puts a lot of pressure on Barry Enright, but I need a story like that because I want to see somebody that like the Angels were signing pitchers that had the potential to do that years ago, like Matt Harvey, for example, right? I need a story of a guy like Matt Harvey who maybe was good and has struggled, and then the Angels signed him for a great deal, and then he ended up being a 15-5 pitcher for us. I need that from our Halos organization in order for me to continue to have confidence in the management and in the coaches. I feel like I need at least one of those stories because we haven't had that for many, many years. I can go back to early 2000s. That's why Brendan Donnelly was so good, because he kind of bounced around and he was an older bullpen guy. Angels took a shot on him and he ended up being really great. Now, I know Hunter Strickland might be a potential story there, but Strickland had some things that the Rays helped him figure out. Maybe Robert Stevenson might be a story there. But again, the Rays helped him figure out some things. I need the Angels to have one of those stories. I need the Angels to be able to say, hey, look what we did with at least one guy, with at least one pitcher. That would be a benefit, I think, for Angel fans in 2025.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long time since they've been able to have a story like that. And hopefully they can find that person. That's what I've been saying is they just need to find that person that people are overlooking and not quite sure about. But I'm with you on that. They need something to give us and make us feel good about this team. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we discussed a Taylor Ward trade yesterday. Who else is an option to be traded? Rhett had some ideas, and we're going to talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active members right now, and it's so easy, and it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is play you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch those winnings roll in. Right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can download their app right now. When you do, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Get this, John. Don't even need to win. Don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. Probably good for you because I know that you struggled this last weekend. Okay. Maybe let's see. Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
Everybody is in the future right now, so they know how last night's game turned out. But I've got Mookie Betts for more than 1.5 total bases. I'm taking that. Luis Heel is going to have more than 2.5 pitcher strikeouts. Tommy Edman for more than 1.5 total bases, and Freddie Freeman for more than 1.5 total bases.
You learned
three out of those are devil picks, Mike. So there you go. Taking a risk. And everyone today knows the results. They're going to laugh at me probably.
Yeah, or at least you'll get $50 even if you don't win, because PrizePicks guarantees that, right? I love that. PrizePicks, run your game.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And every dayers, if you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. We love hearing from you. But while you're over there, hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 8,000 subscribers. We'd love to hit that before the end of the year. I think we can pull that off. And if you're an everydayer, why don't you do that? Even if you just listen to us on the audio side, totally helps us out to have your subscription on the YouTube side. All right, Mike, talking about who else the Halos might consider putting on the trade block. Why don't you take us through who might be off limits to start this conversation?
Yeah, let's start this conversation. Rhett Bollinger wrote that Caden Dana and Christian Moore are considered untouchable. Like you can't even go near, can't sniff near them.
Undateable.
And so then he also wrote that the Halos are not likely to trade some of the guys that they got last year or drafted last year: George Clausen, Ryan Johnson, Chris Cortez, and Sam Altaguiri. So those guys would be considered completely completely untouchable, completely off limits.
Ryan Shohei Ohtani Johnson. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Who was drafted in that place? Okay, so
Right.
then now let's talk about who is available. I think some of the obvious names here. We did talk about Taylor Ward yesterday, Tyler Anderson, and Luis Rengifo.
Mhm.
Both are set to be free agents after 2025. Look, you guys know, and Mike knows as well, I am all about giving an extension to Luis Rengifo. Lock that guy up for at least ages 28 to 32, because he's just now entering his prime. And I know that he has had some injury issues over the last 2 years. Man, if he can stay healthy, and really it's the bicep thing, so I don't know what they might need to do there, but at least it's something they can identify now. But man, give that guy an extension. I would love to see that. If not, I think they could get a pretty decent return for him. But Mike, who's more likely to be traded, Rengifo or Anderson?
I'm going to say Rengifo, because they're going to need pitching. They're always going to need pitching. And I can't see them getting rid of Tyler Anderson for any reason at this point. Maybe he gets traded at the trade deadline if they're completely out of it. But I think that they're going to lean more pitching heavy, which I think is a smart direction. So that means that Rengifo is probably going to be the guy that they trade and go and get, I don't know, another bat, or go and get another arm. Who knows? And if they bring up Christian Moore, maybe their thought process is, we're going to have Christian Moore at second base, so we don't need Rengifo there, but there still is a big hole at third base and what they're going to do at third base. But my opinion is that Rengifo gets traded before Tyler Anderson gets traded. If you're putting them up on a list, Rengifo's 1, Anderson is 2. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you in the sense that who's more likely to be traded is Rengifo. Who I would want to trade is Tyler Anderson, considering he does have 1 year left, and a lot of teams would love to come in with the expectation of, all right, we got this guy all year. Obviously, he had a great first half, second half, not so great, but we can make the adjustment halfway through the season with, a trade before the trade deadline or what have you. And you have him for a clean $13 million, which is relatively affordable for a lot of starting pitchers out there. I think that goes understated a lot of the time. They think Anderson is an expensive contract. I don't think so. I think $13 million for a starter is right in line with where starting pitching is these days. To me, it's tricky because we saw what happened at the deadline last year with Anderson. Didn't get moved. Didn't seem to be it didn't seem like a lot of teams were clamoring for him. Now, like you mentioned with Taylor Ward, maybe the asking price was too high. Maybe it comes down this trade deadline, but I think that teams would jump at the chance to have Anderson for the full year and have that expectation of him. Plus, it's probably a good year to give some opportunities to some of the arms that you're excited about in the system, in the pipeline. You mentioned George Clausen. You mentioned Sam Aldigari. Always mess that up. Sam Aldigari. And you're probably going to see opportunities for those guys coming down this season.
Yeah. Bollinger also wrote that another name that could potentially be moved is Reed Detmers. And the reason is because he just might need a change of scenery. Now he's 25, obviously had his struggles, was in AAA. You get an extra year of Reed Detmers now because he spent a lot of time in AAA this season. So I'm going to ask you this question because I think you know the answer for me. Are you ready? Are you ready to trade Reed Detmers, or do they need to give him more time?
Man, it's so hard. He's 25 years old. You got that extra year because he spent time in AAA. Here's the thing is they moved him to AAA to give him like a low stakes environment, but it also got him away from the team and the coaching staff and Barry Enright. So he spent all that time away from, the guys who probably could help him out the most. And clearly when he's like, I don't know what I did. I don't know what I changed. I mean, that's frustrating to hear. Somebody needs to tell him what to do, what to say, and what he needs to work on. And I think that him being around the major league club, give him another chance this season. I mean, he came out of the gate hot and he was a stud for those first, 3-4 starts this season. Like, where's that guy? And how do we get more of that? So, I think that there's a case to be made that a change of scenery would be good for him. At the same time, have you tried hard enough with him? Because it doesn't seem like you're at that point. I think that you have a lot more to give Reed Detmers if you're going to consider trading him. Before you do that, consider the fact that, hey, maybe there's some more things that you can work out with him and try to get right with him before you decide to give him up. But what do you say?
Yeah, I say give him more time. I think he's only had really a year, half a year with Barry Enright and Ron Washington, and he's had 3 years with Matt Wise, Phil Nevin, right? Like, I mean, he's not had great coaches around him until this year. And then you're right, he was in AAA most of the time. And so I'd love to see what this offseason does for Reed Detmers. We've talked about Barry Enright on this show, and we've had an interaction with him on, I think it was Instagram. And we were like, hey man, we'd love to have you on the show when you're free. We also said we'd love to see Reed Detmers like improve. And his response to that was, we're working hard to make sure that Reed Detmers improves. And so Enright has a full offseason with him, and then he'll have a full spring training with him, and he'll have the philosophy in him. And so I'm hopeful that maybe perhaps that will change the game for him. I know that it's a mental thing. It seems like it's more mind than it is body. And so maybe there is some work that they can do this offseason to get the giggles out and work through the moments where he really struggles on the mound of what he should throw, and give him a strategy, give him a plan, and go out there and do that. Because something at the beginning of the year clicked, and then teams either figured him out or the click went off. And in my opinion, John, it was more of the click going off than teams figuring him out, right?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
We did our research on it, and it was all about location for Reed Detmers and why he was struggling in those last couple of starts before he got sent down. Just couldn't locate. And when he's locating right and getting that correctly, I'd say give him a big target to hit the bullseye 100 times. You know what I'm saying? Like work on that location over the offseason. I also like what you said when we discussed him, I think last week. You said, take this year and make it your rookie year. Take this year, wipe everything away. I know you have a no-hitter. I know you've had success in the past. Take everything, wipe it away, start this year fresh. This is your big league call-up, Reed Detmers. Let's make it a successful 2025.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Gametime. Listen, I know that many of you are probably trying to go to the World Series, whether you're a Dodger fan or not. Having the World Series in your area is really exciting, but tickets, man, they can be really expensive. Had some friends that actually went to the game, and now they had to sell a kidney to be able to pay for it. So, no, I'm kidding. They didn't have to do that, but they did have to pay a lot of money to go. And I told them, you should have used Gametime and used our promo code. We could have hooked you up. Gametime really is great at wanting to save you money. They're obsessed with that, whether it's for sports or comedy, theater, concerts, so much more. They have exclusive in-app flash deals on select seats ahead of the time of the game or the event. They have zone deals where you choose the section, Gametime chooses the seat. All in pricing. Toggle this feature on. You'll be able to see all of what it is that you're going to pay for right at checkout. No surprise fees, plus panoramic view of your seat, which I love because I'm super controlling, and so I need to know where I'm going to sit. And then they have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, every purchase that you receive with Gametime has Gametime ticket coverage. It's the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, which is great. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets wherever you're going with Gametime. Download their app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Gametime.
All right, so we have a slate of free agents who are going to be free agents at the conclusion of the World Series. Again, maybe it ended last night. I don't know. I'm in a hurry to just get it over with so that we can get to the offseason and we can make all of this official. So maybe I'm having a good day today and I'm just, ahead of time. I'm not aware of it yet. But Mike, left-hander Matt Moore, a fan favorite of mine, didn't do so hot in 2024 compared to 2023. I actually think Brock Burke is an excellent replacement for Matt Moore. And we also got him from Texas as well. So that kind of worked out. Brandon Drury is also a free agent. Kevin Pillar, free agent. And Hunter Strickland, again, the workhorse of the bullpen. Bollinger said none are likely to receive a qualifying offer. Any of these names, Mike, that you'd like to see back in the fold with the Angels this season?
Hunter Strickland is probably the guy that I would like to see come back, just because I think that something's been unlocked in him. And again, he was going to retire. And then this year he had a good year. I think he's a good innings eater for this bullpen. And if we've learned anything from the World Series, or even just the playoffs, having a great bullpen where you can have a bullpen game in the middle of the playoffs and be successful. I think Hunter Strickland allows the Angels to have some depth and stretch out that bullpen a bit in 2025. I don't know where he would slot in compared to who they have right now. And I know that there are some minor league guys that are probably going to get a major league shot, but I think Hunter Strickland and his veteran experience, and he put up good numbers last year. He's got good stats. I'd love to see him out of that list. I'd love to see him back next season.
How do you feel about him being another year older? How do they prevent another Matt Moore situation where it's like, oh, obviously you bring back Matt Moore next season and then he has the struggles that he has? What do you say?
Yeah, I think that it would have to be a situation where you're going to take that risk. If you feel like the Eric Torreses or other guys in the minor leagues can help solidify that spot and move on, or maybe it is one of the guys you have with Robert Stevenson or something like that, then I think that you move in that direction. I would want to be 100% confident that we're going to sign this guy because we're going to give him a shot. I know that there's always the tendency of regression for these bullpen guys. Personally, I would give him another shot because I think the Angels always are going to need extra bullpen arms. Maybe he's not the guy you rely on to be in the huge innings, but he is a guy that can come in 4th inning, 5th inning, 6th inning, right? Get you through that inning, help preserve a lead or help keep the lead not too far away so that the offense can come back.
In the name of keeping the team hyped and the bullpen hyped, Carlos Estevez really was that guy last season. And then when he was traded, I mean, I know that Ben Joyce eventually ended up in the closer role, and that's where I would anticipate he ends up next season as well. But it really did seem like Hunter Strickland was the guy who kind of stepped up and filled that void left by Carlos Estevez in terms of, keeping the team together, keeping the bullpen locked down. So if his presence helps this bullpen maintain what they were able to do the rest of the season from June 15th onward, we talked about how good that bullpen was. I think that's a risk that you do take. Mike, regarding non-tender candidates, when does the club have to make that decision? Well, the deadline is November 22nd, and two names that Rhett Bollinger brought up was Jose Suarez and Griffin Canning, both coming off tough seasons, likely to still be tendered contracts and remain with the organization. Man, do you not have a better choice than Jose Suarez? Look, I know he came back, pitched well, ticked up the velo on his fastball. That was a shock to me. But, when you consider, you need arms constantly. Are these two arms, or at least one arm, that you're willing to kind of pass on? Or what kind of role do these guys need to play next season?
I think the Angels are afraid of what will happen if someone else gets to be able to develop these guys.
Hey,
because
you know what? If they develop Jose Suarez and they get to the World Series, then they deserve 8 trophies.
I think that's part of why they've held on to him. They thought somebody would claim him when they DFA'd him, and nobody did, right? Yeah. And so I think that's why they hang on to these guys. If I'm going to pick, I'm leaning more towards Griffin Canning than Jose Suarez, because Griffin Canning has at least been the consistent guy, not competent, great, but yes, right? He's been competent is probably a better word. Suarez has just been up and down, and then he didn't even recognize what he did wrong. He was like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I think Griffin Canning is more of a professional pitcher. I could see Griffin Canning taking a step forward. John, maybe Griffin Canning is the guy that we've been hoping for, that the Angels would figure out. Maybe something clicks this year with Griffin Canning because of the work this offseason that he does with Barry Enright. Maybe it's in-house. Maybe it's not someone we go and get, but maybe Griffin Canning suddenly, I know I'm dreaming here, but suddenly becomes a 12-5 starter, 15-6 starter, right? Maybe all of a sudden he has an ERA of low 4s, high 3s, right? That would be remarkable if they could figure out what it is in him that needs to be figured out. Maybe he's that guy that Angel fans, and me included, are longing for, that the Angels fixed and solved, and he ends up being a really great player for us.
Yeah, it's either got to be him or Detmers. These guys need to figure out why they're having the struggles that they have. And again, it's the under the radar pick. It's the, you mentioned Eric Fetty yesterday. Like, I thought that was a great idea to go and snag him, because the White Sox took that risk because they had nothing to lose. And look how it turned out for them. They made the trade with the Cardinals and the Dodgers, that 3-way trade. And so that's what I'm saying, is it just feels like this is another nothing to lose season. I know that they want to be competitive. They want to go to the playoffs. That's the talk that we're getting. Well, that's TBD based on how they, actually act in the offseason. Mike, I made a list of guys that I could potentially see being non-tendered contracts, because you heard me the other day when I said, I'm ready to move on from the guys who are clogging up the 40-man. I want to see new blood infused into the system. Let's start using the Matthew Lugos and the guys that were excited, the Michael Darrell Hickses of the world. Let's start getting those guys on the 40-man roster. So here's the list I came up with. You tell me if these are good ideas for non-tenders or bad ideas. So at the top, of course, I have Jose Suarez. I thought about Gustavo Campero. Did his part at the end of the season. Don't think he's a long-term piece. I hate to say it, Kenny Rosenberg, Davis Daniel, I think are two that you might consider non-tendering. Bryce Teodosio, to me, is on the fringe, but I also think that there's something about him they really like, so I could see them keeping him. Tell me what you think about this. Kyron Paris, Jordan Adams, really highly touted prospects for so long, and we've had them forever. And I think Adams was drafted 2018, I believe, and here we are a few years later. I don't know how to feel about them. I wonder if there's a notion to kind of move on from those guys. So any of those guys that you agree with, disagree with, what do you say?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna hang on to pitchers. But maybe not Jose Suarez.
I was gonna say, so you're hanging on to Jose Suarez. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep Davis Daniel. I'm gonna keep Kenny Rosenberg. I think I like Gustavo and I like Teodosio. I haven't seen much of them to be able to make a decision about them. I think that there is something in Kyron Paris that I would hold on to, and there is something in Jordan Adams that I would want to hold on to. So if I'm letting go of anybody, I'm probably going to let go of Campero and Jose Suarez. I think I would keep Teodosio, and I would keep Rosenberg and Davis Daniel, and of course Paris and Adams. And you were shaking your head at me. Are you
shaking my head? You're not my GM. I'm not letting you be GM anymore.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, you can enjoy Locked On MLB. The show's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Again, whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comment section. We always do our best to get to your comments because you have great insight and discussion there. Mike, what do you have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, the Rule 5 draft is going to come soon, and the Angels need to move some players to the 40-man roster. So who are the guys that need to move to the 40-man? How does the Rule 5 draft work? We're going to talk about all of that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
That show too. Yeah, we're looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
You yelled at me. That's what threw me off. And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
I'm just saying, cut them all. All right, friends. We hope you'll come back and join us. And then we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Yank 'em like you're starting a mower.